What's going on, everybody? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and in today's Division 2 video, we need to discuss Skyscraper, or Summit. I lose track. You can call it whatever you like, but we need to discuss this new mode in detail. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We are going to go through it all in this one. But before we begin, in case you were not yet a sub, please take just a moment to smash that sub button for intensive Division content, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another upload notification from my YouTube channel. All right, grab your drinks and a snack, and let's get this show on the road. So in preparation for this video, I went back and played a bit of Underground from the original Division game, as well as a quick round of Survival, and about 20 to 30 minutes of Resistance Solo, just so I could reacclimate myself to those modes, and then I went back into the PTS and knocked out about 10 or 11 floors on Summit in the heroic difficulty range, and that will bring us to the first topic for today. So I want to start off with what I feel is an easy topic to ease into this Summit discussion with, and that is save points. Right now, these are every 10 floors. So if you make it from, say, 50 to 60, and then you kill the boss on floor 60, you get that save point permanently, and you can jump to that floor anytime you want. Now, the issue is that the internet in general and this game mode are really unstable, and I have lost count of how many times I've been delted or stuck in an elevator that refuses to open, and I have to restart all the way back at the beginning of that difficulty range. Now, it's one thing to get to level 60 and die to the boss and be reset back to level 51. I mean, that one is on me, and I am subject to the mechanics of the game. But it is something entirely different to get caught in an elevator or delted, which does not save your progress, and then be thrown back to the beginning of that floor range for circumstances outside your control. So here's my suggestion. Add in a session save point every 3 floors, and notice I did not say permanent save point. This way, if anything happens to the connection or players are unable to exit the elevator, they will have the option to restart only 3 floors back. Or else, Summit is really going to piss off a lot of agents who are not going to want to re-engage the grind once they lose their progress and are reset to floor 1 of that difficulty cycle. This soft save could be reset if they turn off their systems or just don't want to continue with the game mode. Now, if you or your squad wiped an Underground, you were reset to the beginning of that phase, and in reality, that could cost you 5 to 10 minutes of playtime. If you delta or get caught in the elevator on Summit, the time loss penalties could be an hour or more. Targeted loot, if used properly, can really entice or scare players away from engaging in certain light zones or missions, and it can do the same with Summit. Now, as I recorded the footage today, Overlord was the brand set in the targeted loot pool, and to be honest, I would not want to grind out 10, 20, or even 100 floors of this brand set. I mean, I've got my Fox's Prayer knee pads and I'm good to go, so for me, the idea of Overlord dropping all around me is enough to sway my decision to not play Summit anymore that day. On top of what I just said, farming Summit is not going to be the most efficient way to grab gear, as I can easily rip through Lincoln Memorial in around 10 to 12 minutes on Heroic in a group and literally be swimming in loot. So what do we do about this? Well, I'd like to see a mechanic installed into Summit that allows players to choose what loot pool becomes targeted. Say like a token system that can be redeemed every 10 floors, and it allows a player or group to choose what brand set they want to farm. Now, if this token system is not possible, at least just change the targeted loot every 10 floors to add some variety. But if the token system is available, these tokens could drop randomly, like resources. They could be looted from specialty crates or just drop from bosses. Whatever is possible at this point, but it needs to be an option. The original Division game did not have a targeted loot system, so that any item could drop at any time, and perhaps that could even work in this scenario, versus players refusing to engage with Summit strictly based on the poor targeted loot for that day. I will be discussing the general environment and the way it looks and feels later in this breakdown, but for right now, I want to talk about the interactions with the environment, as this was masterfully done in both Underground and Survival. Now, both of those environments were not only beautifully crafted, but they featured actual environment as a source of danger and potentially death. Underground featured all types of elemental damage mechanics, such as bare and sparking electrical wires, zones of the map that were on fire, improvised explosive devices that were detonated by proximity, and even blinding devices. Now, on top of all of this, the NPCs each had a variety of disorient grenades they could use against you and your squad. Point being, the underground environment and NPC skills were just as much as a threat as bullets or grenades. Survival, of course, had the snowstorm and the sepsis infection that you were constantly monitoring. Get too cold, you died. Let the infection go for too long or untreated, you again died. And just like Underground, Survival had that variety of explosive devices and grenade types to disorient your character. As I started to play Summit, I noticed it has none of this. There are really no environmental dangers that have to be navigated other than a room that seems to tear away your armor due to a contaminant and then requires you to use the ventilation systems. I mean, it's really disheartening. There is nothing in Summit other than NPCs that can kill you. I mean, I guess you could lump the whole EMP device encounter into this category for Summit, but if you know what you are doing, this really isn't an issue. Now, my thoughts and suggestions would focus on making the actual floor designs for Summit more dangerous. Elemental devices or even timed encounters that slowly degrade your character's health could help out this topic, because as of right now, it is just me versus NPCs with an occasional interact or zone that I'm required to capture or defend. At 100 floors in total, Summit looks like it will be hours of fun and will appeal to every skill level of player, but in reality, the first 50 or so floors are fluff and do nothing but prolong the entry into the floors where the fun and challenge actually begins. Slaughtering endless hordes of normal and hard difficult NPCs for hours does nothing but turn the feeling of excitement into sheer boredom for many players, and this leads me to the point that we are going to need a difficulty scaling mechanic from minute 1 when Summit eventually launches. Now, I know what many viewers are saying out there right now, and that if you want a harder experience, just start at one of the higher floors once you unlock it. And while this is a totally valid viewpoint, it would cut out over half of what Summit has to offer. I personally like Heroic and Legendary difficulty, which begins at floor 50, and this is my sweet spot. For a player that is just starting off, they may only be able to handle normal to challenge difficulty, and for both of us, that need to match our skills with the difficulty settings effectively reduces a 100 floor PvE event into 50 floors or less. I think the entire Division community is with me on this one, and the fact that we need to be able to select the difficulty of the Summit game mode to match our personal needs. If I want 100 floors of Legendary, then let me choose that. I can understand why this is the way it is right now, and I will cover that in this next talking point, but when half or more of the event is cut out due to difficulty scaling issues, this needs to be evaluated. Underground had normal, hard, and challenge difficulty along with the choices of 1, 2, or 3 phases and 5 directives to totally customize your experience, and it was incredible. With a little programming and creativity, Summit could offer that same type of level customization. Using the topic we just covered of difficulty scaling, and it really is a good time to say that the current format that Summit is using, with the floors of incrementally harder difficulties, would lend itself perfectly to a survival format. Drop me into Summit with normal gear and weaponry, and let me fight, loot, and craft my way through the difficulties all the way to the top. Crafting benches with blueprints, skills, and other items could be installed into the game every 2 or 3 floors, and we could upgrade our agents as we fought our way to the summit and eventual extraction. Maybe you haven't heard of this theory for how to really fix Summit, but now that you have to admit that the way the floors work with the gradual increasing of difficulties would work really well in this survival format. Players could compete for the fastest time to the top, and all the regular survival occurrences such as hunters at extraction should be included. Now, if this mechanic were installed, it would instantly remove the need for Topic 4, difficulty scaling, as agents would start on an even level with their targets and be forced to craft and upgrade their loot as they moved higher and higher into Skyscraper. Now, of all my suggestions laid out in this video, this is the one I would be most excited for. I wanted to jump back into the environment of Summit, as I briefly touched on it earlier on in the video, but this time I want to talk about the construction of the building, and this is a glaring weakness. Now, the overwhelming majority of the levels feel like paintball arenas with the same pallets of supplies, half-constructed walls, and doorways. Once you've played an hour of Summit, you've pretty much seen them all. I mean, I'm to the point now that I can enter the room, clear the first set of ads, and already be camping the spawn closets before the NPCs arrive. It really feels like there's something like 8 to 10 different floor plans, and once you've seen them all, that's it. we've always seemed to enter the chambers from the back right corner and then fight our way across the rooms. And on top of that, the majority of the rooms are entirely flat with combat occurring at medium range. There is literally no variance of levels of combat, something that Underground did so well. I mean, we had those fast zip lines up and down, stairwells, gangways, and all types of verticality in that game mode, and it really sticks out versus Summit, where we are seemingly always eye to eye with our targets. It is entirely one-dimensional combat, and is one of the main contributing factors to this mode being so damn boring. The climbing in the elevator shafts is really the only verticality we experience during the event. We need so much more stretching of the vertical sightlines, and I honestly don't know if this mode has the ability to deliver on this need. As is, we shoot at horizon a vast majority of the time, and it really holds back the potential replayability and fun factor this game so desperately needs. Let's stick with the environment for this next talking point, and I've got to say that the flow of Summit is terrible. So let me explain. First off, the chambers and how they are connected makes absolutely no sense. How do you go from what looks like a ventilation or heavily industrialized area with servers, open up a door, and you are in a furnished office space or donut shop? I mean, it makes no sense at all, and it leads us to the assumption that the design team only designed a preset amount of rooms, and then the mechanics for how those chambers were connected was installed with no direction or common sense. As I mentioned earlier on in this video, the rooms all tend to look the same, with these unfinished interiors, but within this, there are some seriously glaring issues. How are the interiors this bare, with graffiti all over the place, yet they have perfectly functioning high-def TVs all over the place that are not damaged and working perfectly? The floors look like they are covered in sand or sawdust along with huge amounts of torn paper. I have frequently seen papers blowing around on the floor in a swirling pattern like they were in a tornado, but this is inside an office building. And where in the hell are the windows? Why can't I see anything outside? Then you throw in the fact that the soundtrack is banging away in your eardrums, leading you to think that you're about to enter into World War III, but the sounds and what you experience in terms of combat just don't match up. Like I said, the flow of Summit is way off, not only in the way the chambers are placed and connected, but also in how the environment looks to the observer. And then you throw in how the soundtrack easily outpaces the combat, and it just really breaks up the experience and destroys what immersion it is attempting to portray. I don't know how Summit could do this poorly when all you needed to do was reference Underground as an example of how to do immersion properly. And finally, Summit looks visually no different than something I can see in a mission in the Light Zone, and if anything, it does not look as visually stunning as other missions we have been playing for over a year and a half. Why does this new game mode look the same as something else I can find already in the game, and then it does so on a lesser degree than the aforementioned content? As I have said, it all breaks up the immersion and leaves us with a boring, disjunct environment that does nothing to build attachment or adoration to the style and formatting of the environment. I've never been a fan of forced directives, and again, with Summit, we see this used as a lazy way of increasing the difficulty of the combat. Listen, I play the Division because of the varied and powerful skills and weaponry at my disposal. And when you take away my ammo, my ability to use multiple skills at the same time, and even my radar, it really detracts from me feeling like a badass Division agent. Directives should be there to customize the gaming experience, not hamper your abilities to artificially increase difficulty. Underground did directives really well, and the fact that they featured a negative and positive attribute within each. Shock rounds that applied shock effects to targets, but if used in continuous auto fire would fill up a meter and shock you instead. Faster natural health regen, but greatly increased cooldown timers on healing skills. I mean, this type of thing, you know? Not directives that only hurt the player experience and reality net you very little extra XP on Summit, not that many of us are still chasing and farming XP, but why is this mechanic not only used, but used liberally and in a forced manner? Now, we not only need directives with both a positive and negative attribute associated with them, but we need the option to enable or disable the directives to customize our experience. For instance, if you want to force us into a level with cool skills, then give the skills a greatly reduced cooldown timer to offset the fact that both skills go onto cooldown when you use just one of them. It can't just be a negative force multiplier to hamper us and increase the potency of our enemies in order to lazily increase the difficulty of the environment. So to summarize this topic, we need new directives with both positive and negative traits, the option to enable or disable directives, and if we do choose to enable them, incentives and increased rewards for the more directives we have activated at once. I've already touched on the lack of variety in the chambers and builds of the floors, as they all really look the same, but I wanted to dive into this topic even further with the mention of the omission of the specialty chambers we used to see and underground. They were rare, but when they did pop up into your phase rotation, you would instantly get excited. Remember what I'm talking about? The underground mall, the bank vault, and of course the rave room. These were special rooms that fans of underground were always on the lookout for, and they added even more icing to that proverbial cake when they showed up. What was really cool is that you knew they were coming, as the architecture of the environment would gradually change and you could hear a shift in the music, like the pumping bass from the rave room or the long neon lights that led to that chamber. So far, other than the summit, I haven't seen a single chamber that really sticks out as something anywhere close to those rare underground chambers. They all look similar, and dare I say, they look the same. In fact, in its current state, that is how I would sum up Summit. More of the same. It needs surprises. It needs mechanics, it needs those specialty rooms and chambers, and finally, it really needs to get fleshed out and completed before being launched. Okay, so we've reached the end of this breakdown, topic number 10, and it focuses on the fun factor. How replayable is this replayable game mode? Well, in reality, not very. I probably won't be playing this mode once it comes out due to the issues I have laid out in the previous talking points during the video. Now, if it were converted over to a Survival-esque style, where I could customize my experience in terms of targeted loot directives and difficulty scaling, maybe. I mean, it needs to triple the number of chamber designs along with more varied entry points while adding in verticality, mechanics, incentives, narrative, and variance. Pretty much everything that you would expect in a well-crafted, replayable mode. I'm not trying to rub anybody's noses in the sand, but Summit really feels like a tech demo, almost as if this build was used to pitch the idea to management at Ubisoft in an attempt to show them a potential build concept and therefore secure development dollars. Within this demo, it shows the basics such as combat, difficulty, and design, but it disperses with everything else. If Summit releases in this state lacking everything that is needed to create a solid replayable mode, it will become Kinley College Part 2, and that is why I would suggest that it be delayed until it can be completed and fully fleshed out. TU11 can go live as expected with the improvements to loot, but including Summit in this update is premature and will only lead to another game mode being released to the player base that they will never play. I think this video has carried on for long enough, and as always, I look forward to reading your feedback concerning Summit in the comment section below. If you haven't yet done so, please take just a second to smash that sub button and ring the bell to never miss another upload notification from my channel. If you liked the video, rate it with a thumbs up. If not, with a thumbs down. If you are interested in purchasing an Iron Horse Raid Guide t-shirt, look in the video description or below the video for links to Teespring, where you can order yours today with all proceeds going to charity. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter for all my latest thoughts concerning most things gaming related, and until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.